Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new podcast episode. My name is Sadia Anwar. I am Acquisition Editor at River Publishers. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Professor Andrea Tangherloni, Assistant Professor at Bocconi University, Italy. And he is also Editor in Chief of our upcoming River Rapid series in Computational Biology. We are also very much pleased to have with us the authors of a paper that recently received the Best Paper Award 2024 at the 21st IEEE Conference on Computational Intelligence in Bioinformatics and Computational Biology. The paper is titled as Immunity Vanishing Act, Epidemic Variant and Immunity Analysis via Evolutionary Computation by Michael Dube and Professor Sheridan Houghten. Just to let you know, the award was already presented at the conference, and today's conversation is more of a chance to take a glimpse into the paper, hear the story behind it, and learn what makes this research special. So, let me first introduce our guest. Michael Dube is a postdoctoral researcher at Otto von Guericke University in Germany, where he studies swarm intelligence with multi-robot systems. He holds a PhD in bioinformatics and an MSc in computer science. So, welcome, Michael, to our podcast. And then we have with us Professor Sheridan Houghten. She is a professor of computer science at Brock University, Canada. Her research spans combinatorial optimization, computational intelligence, and bioinformatics. She is also a senior member of the IEEE Computational Intelligence Society. So thank you for being here, Professor Sheridan Houghton. Welcome to our podcast. Following that, I would like to ask Michael, could you start us off by giving our listeners a brief introduction to the paper and its main idea?
Yeah, so the main idea of the paper is I've been working on epidemic modeling for the last few years, and we've been slowly trying to incorporate more elements to the model that bring it closer to kind of what we see in the real world. And so one of those things that I had done previously was incorporating basically immunity and variance into the model. And as we had seen with the COVID-19 pandemic, with multiple variants popping up and people losing immunity or getting multiple infections to various variants, we saw that was that immunity wasn't guaranteed. It wasn't a stable state, shall we say. And so the motivation for this paper was to include the vanishing immunity, or the immunity that would go away over time. And so that was the idea behind this paper.
Thank you, Michael. That gives us a great glimpse into your work. Now I will move towards Professor Sheridan. What was the motivation behind this research? And also, could you share some of the key insights about epidemic behavior that emerged from applying evolutionary algorithms?
So I think Michael gave a little bit of the insight there about some of the background of what he's been doing. But I guess one of the motivations was what happened, as we all know, we all experienced the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the things that we were hoping at the start of that, everyone was thinking, okay, well, if someone gets sick, once they get sick, they'll be permanently immune. They'll never have to worry about this again. Or if they're vaccinated, they'll never have to worry about this again. And that was all what we were hoping, but it didn't turn out to be true. So there were a few things that were happening there, right? There was the fact that it did seem that immunity can fade over time, which is one of the things that Michael had mentioned. And the other thing is that variants could occur, right? So, the initial infection, as various infections happened, right, there was a chance that someone would then develop a variant as they were sick, and then that would then be passed on to other people. And so all of that sort of complicates how we study all of those situations. So I guess that was one of the main motivations in there. And we just wanted to study how all of those things work together. I guess, well, there was a couple of different things that we studied where we looked at different lengths of someone could stay immune to something. So the length of time over which it would fade. And I mean, so if someone's immunity lasted for a really long time, we found that basically it was as good as if, you know, it was actually permanent immunity in terms of the aspects that we were looking at. Or on the other hand, if it faded too quickly, right, that was also extremely bad. But then sort of at the middle grounds, that was where some of the interesting things happened, because we looked at two different types of things where we were looking at the severity of an infection, which is where someone would get more sick. And then we were looking at the spread of the infection, where it's just like where we're trying to focus on how many people would actually get infected during a given wave of the epidemic. And so that's the point at which we found there were some key differences in there.
Thank you for sharing your motivation and also the key insights about that epidemic behavior. Now I'll move to Professor Andrea. Would you like to take the lead from here? Do you have questions for our guests?
Oh, yeah, thank you, Sadia. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, one key part of your study involved different fitness functions for simulations. Can you maybe explain how these approaches affected the networks differently?
Yeah, so our personal contact networks, which are representing the connections between people in a population. So AKA who my friends are, and those are the people that I could get sick, right? So if we have that there. And so our evolutionary algorithm would generate these networks. And we tested several different immunity types. In practice, this was how long the immunity would last. So we had somewhere between permanent immunity to it would last 5 or 10 time steps, that sort of stuff. And the biggest difference between the fitness functions was when we had a moderate immunity length. And in this case, there were significantly more edges for the spread fitness function than for severity. So if we think about spread, it's trying to maximize how many people get sick. So by adding more edges, you're going to increase the number of infections that can happen, because each person can get, on average, more people sick. In practice, this means that the average person would have more physical connections with individuals in the population.
Thank you so much. Very clear explanation. And I have another question, maybe a question more general question. What was the impact of immunity and new variants on the outcomes of your simulation? And how can models like this contribute to advancing research in computational biology and general medicine?
As far as the impact of all of that, I guess what we're really hoping is that we're using models like this. We're seeing results that are actually very similar to the sort of thing that we did see in real life as well. So if we were looking at the various curves that were generated during using our model, and we compared it to the various curves that were generated when people were tracking the variants during the COVID-19 pandemic, we did see very similar sorts of behavior for that sort of thing. It did look very similar. But so what we're hoping is that this sort of research could have an impact for public health professionals, where it would help to give them some advice on how to manage an epidemic, right? How to possibly think about different vaccination strategies or other mitigation efforts to help to control the epidemic. And then with all of that, right, if we're able to have that impact, then I think it has a good result in terms of the research as well, just overall, not just for our research, but for research in general, showing that this sort of thing can make a contribution and have a positive impact on this sort of situation.
So, Professor Andrea, do you have another question or?
No, thank you so much, Michael and Sheridan. Very fascinating research and very interesting results that can help us improve our understanding of different diseases. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like to say that it was a wonderful discussion. It really helps highlight the broader significance of your work while giving us the knowledge into the technical depth behind it. So as a final thought, Michael and Professor Sheridan, perhaps we can go one by one. Where do you see this line of research going next, especially when we think about connecting such models to real-world epidemic data?
Sheridan, would you like to go first, or would you like me to?
Sure, I can go first if you like. I guess one of the main things would be to bring in demographic data. So in this particular paper, we were just thinking of any type of infection as being basically the same, regardless of the type of person who is being infected. But we know, for example, that people who are older often have immunity that fades more quickly, or maybe they just didn't gain as much immunity to begin with. And so that's an important step to incorporate that sort of information in there. Michael, do you want to take over and talk a bit more?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that just in general, adding to the model, anything that we can do that gets how the model works for our epidemic model, that is, closer to real world epidemics would bring us closer to what's happening in the real world, right? And so another thing that could be changed, obviously the demographic data would be good, but we can also change how we actually represent immunity and variant strings. So right now they're just represented as bit strings, and each one bit is representing either immunity to or the presence of a problematic protein, let's say. But having meetings with epidemiologists and finding something that's more complex and closer to what we actually see inside actual immune systems, I think would bring us closer to the real world and further expand the model and its capabilities.
Yeah. With that, I would like to say thank you very much, Michael and Professor Sheridan, for sharing your insights with us. And thank you, Professor Andrea, for joining this discussion as well. And once again, congratulations on receiving the Best Paper Award.
Woo!
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.